They can come after me if they want, but I'll run. I will not put up with it. I am a U.S. Marine. I fought in Vietnam twice. I fought for our freedom. I'm not in favor of gold, silver, or Bitcoin. I'm against the Fed, the Treasury, and that criminal operation. I want to get off that IV line that comes from the banks, from the teachers, from the government, and from Wall Street. In 2021, June, which is right now, I'm accumulating as much gold, silver, and Bitcoin, preparing for the day when it goes to FedCoin. This FedCoin, if that comes, it'll be in response to Bitcoin. That'll wipe out the bankers of the world.
So you're happy to see these kids in the crypto markets because they're getting their hands dirty, they're getting experience. We still have the same mission, which is to try to educate people that they have the power to transform themselves and not buy into this narrative.
And the reason it's good that the young people are practicing now is they at least have some experience, they can move on. And you're doing a great job by inspiring the younger generation to keep going. I don't care if it's Bitcoin, Dogecoin, gold, silver, entrepreneurship. But if you do what school teaches you to do, you'll wind up like my poor dad, a PhD, poor, helpless, and desperate. But you've got to start. And so all the young people now who are starting, so what if you fail? Stand up, do it again. That's how you learn.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, sharing our vulnerability, overcoming our fears, transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Robert Kiyosaki, the entrepreneur, investor, motivational speaker, financial expert, and author of the globally renowned bestseller, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the #1 personal finance book of all time. Robert, you spent your entire life challenging the way tens of millions of people around the world think about money, while becoming a passionate and outspoken advocate for financial education in the process. Today, you're here to talk about what the future of finance looks like and how drastically the world has changed in the past 12 months. I'm curious to get your take on cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, as well as DeFi, or decentralized finance, the fast-growing and extremely exciting blockchain infrastructure, which I'm calling the greatest dislocation of wealth in human history. Robert, welcome back to London Real.
And welcome back to you. I mean, you had a rough campaign there. You ran into the buzzsaw.
Yeah, we had an exciting 9 months here of going full on into politics. And I can't wait to deconstruct that piece with you because I know you have some experience with it. You know, Robert, this is our fifth time talking together. We first spoke back in 2014 when you were in London. Then I flew to Phoenix for the conversation we had that I think's been watched 50 or 60 million times. It's been translated into different languages. I saw one version where you and I are both speaking Russian. Then you came to London. Kim's been on the show as well. And it's just been great having you on the show. So I appreciate everything you do, Robert. I'd love to kick it off and talk about, you know, what you've been talking a lot about lately, which is this exciting new space called DeFi, or decentralized finance. You know, I spent 15 years in the centralized finance world of Wall Street in the city of London, alongside both of our good friends, Jim Rickards and Nomi Prince. We had dinner, I think all of us together back in 2018 in Phoenix. And Robert, I watched that industry scalp the economy out of $9 trillion per year in margins and fees. And when I was in that business, Robert, it didn't matter if you were a corporate or an institution or a retail or a government. It was all about taking margin. And that's why I'm excited about DeFi, because I think it's a way to give financial freedom back to the people. And I've gone all in on this. We've created our own DeFi Academy, and we want to educate and invest in this space for the future. But I'm curious what you think, Robert. You know, when I've looked at some of the innovation happening in the space in the last 12 months, it's a bit like what we were doing 30 years ago with derivatives on Wall Street, except people all around the world are doing it. And Robert, they're doing it in a transparent way. So curious your take on it, because you've seen booms and busts your whole career. So what are your thoughts here?
Well, it's probably the reason I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's simply because I don't trust the central banks. I don't trust the Treasury. I don't trust Wall Street. And I don't trust our school system. And as we were talking before you came on, it's what drives me. I don't need the money. But the other thing, too, is what Rich Dad, Poor Dad is about is if you don't know anything about money, you have no freedom. You see, the reason there's no financial education in schools is to keep people tethered to the paycheck. So as you recall, you had so many people in your program, you got deplatformed, Trump gets deplatformed. There are many doctors who got fired in the States today. If you don't take the shot, you get fired. So if you just step back for a moment and ask yourself, who in the world can fire you because you need that paycheck? Well, it goes all the way back to school. They said, go to school to get a job. It's in that mantra that sits between your left ear and your right ear that they hold you prisoner. So what you're talking about here is I don't have any stocks or bonds or mutual funds. I don't have dollars. I use debt. I use everything they tell me not to do. This here it's a U.S. gold eagle. This is money.
Right.
God's money. This here is a silver eagle. God's money. I started a gold mine in China, which they took because they're criminals. And then I started a silver mine in Argentina, which I still have. But the only stocks I have are stocks that I created. I am a capitalist. I am an entrepreneur. I don't mess with Wall Street. I don't mess with the banks. And I don't save money. You see, this you remember here is what people work for. Oh, excuse me. It's a Zimbabwe dollar. It's 10 million Zimbabwe dollars. And, there's people who will still work for this piece of crap rather than this here. They would rather, every stupid school teacher I know will work for this. And that's what they teach you to work for, is this piece of trash, when you should be working for this, and today, Bitcoin. Because exactly as you said, it's decentralized. And centralized, as you know, centralized planning is also called communism. So what happened when Janet Yellen migrated from the Fed to the Treasury, and they Wall Street is just an arm of the federal bank. That's all it is. Every CEO is tethered by the Fed. They have forward guidance and all that BS. I mean, if you guys don't know what that means, it means you're being screwed. You're being screwed through your money. So that's why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad almost 25 years ago. This man here is my good friend, Donald Trump. He got taken down in a fake election. And this is another book I wrote. Fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. The whole system is rigged against you. And it starts when you say to your child, go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, and invest for the long term in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. That's a criminal operation. And that's why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, you're so right, Robert. I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't as much about money. It's about psychology, and it's about exposing the brainwashing, right? It's about exposing the way we brainwash basically the entire public into, like you said, looking forward to that paycheck, which then keeps them behaving in a certain way. And it keeps them stuck in this mentality that allows them to be easily manipulated and to not see this entire rigged game. And, I've worked on both sides of that game. And strangely enough, we're now seeing this, internet-enabled, technology-enabled, decentralized system. And, a lot of people would think 74-year-old Robert Kiyosaki would be running away from something like Bitcoin. But I think you see something that can't be manipulated the way that the dollar is and so many other things. And so in that sense, you seem to be at least open-minded or optimistic about it.
Well, it's because I'm against the criminal operation called the teachers' unions. I'm against the Federal Reserve Bank. I'm against the Treasury, and I'm against Wall Street. Now, I'm not here to take them down. I'm not a criminal activist. I'm just somebody who got educated by my rich dad. That's why rule number one, lesson number one in Rich Dad Poor Dad is rich don't work for money. Because this is what every school teacher is telling you to work for. How do you spell Zimbabwe? This is the US dollar. Biden is going to print, I think, 7 trillion of these fake Zimbabwe. Oh, it could be US. It could be pound. It could be euro. It could be francs. It doesn't make any difference. They're printing this garbage. But they teach you nothing about money at school. And then when guys like you and I speak up, they come after us. But the way they get us is your paycheck is like an IV unit. You're sitting there on this IV thing going in your arm. And they say, if you open your mouth, we'll cut the tubes.
Yeah. And now furlough.
That's what you were silly enough and courageous enough to take on.
Yeah, you're right, Robert. It's that paycheck, or here in the UK, it's that furlough check or that subsidy check, whatever check it is. It's that IV that keeps you in line and keeps you behaving. And it's been baked into our psyche, Robert, from the media, from our teachers, from our parents, that even if you can logically see how wrong and flawed your assumptions are, you've probably seen this in people, Robert, it's still hard to get yourself out of that mentality that dollars are good and the more dollars I get, the better I am. You really have to force yourself into trying to find these real assets that aren't in the control of the racket in some way and get into those things. And that's why you've been in silver and gold since the 60s and 70s. You've been in real estate since back in the day. And now, surprisingly to some people, but not surprising to me, you've been buying Bitcoin at 9,000 and looking to buy more at 27,000. You've been buying Ethereum as well. How did that all happen, Robert?
Well, I'm not in favor of gold, silver, or Bitcoin. I'm against the Fed, the Treasury, and that criminal operation. And so if you have a criminal operation going on, how do you not participate? Well, that's when you go to gold, silver, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. I want to get off that IV line that comes from the banks, from the teachers, from the government, and from Wall Street. I own no allegiance to them. They cannot cut me off. My money is kept outside of America. They can come after me if they want, but I'll run. I will not put up with it. I am a U.S. Marine. I fought in Vietnam twice. I fought for our freedom. And it makes me sick. Just makes me sick that Wall Street and Silicon Valley will join forces with Karl Marx, Adolf Hitler, who else? Mao Zedong, Stalin, and Lenin. And our schools do not teach the philosophies of Marx, Lenin, those criminals. Like, think of teachers' unions. What Marx said was, workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your change. That's teacher union. Teachers Union in America is the most powerful union in America. They're the ones who pull the strings on these two little puppets called Biden and Kamala Harris. And we all know how Kamala Harris, look, Biden and Harris were not the two most popular candidates. When the election started, they're running against my friend Donald. And Kamala and Biden were the last man, the most unpopular of all the candidates. Bernie Sanders was more popular. Elizabeth Warren was more popular. I forget her name now, from Hawaii. But I would have voted for her. I'm not Republican or Democrat. But how in the world did these two losers, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, become the puppets of Wall Street, the banks, and government?
Yeah, well, you said it right. There is this kind of puppet show going on, but it's been sold to us. It's been sold to us in our IRAs and our 401ks. Robert, I did a live broadcast last Friday, and I was talking about my brand new DeFi Academy, and I had so many people ask me questions live, Robert, and they were this: "Oh, I'm a mother. I don't know anything about money. I'm a worker. No one ever taught me about money. I'm not smart enough to invest my money." And I gave them answers probably straight out of the KIYOSAKI playbook. I said, hold on a second. You've been brainwashed to tell you that you don't even know about your own livelihood. This is what you work hard hours for, and yet you're being told you're too stupid to even know how to use that. Just like you're being told what to do with your own body and all these other things. And we can talk about politics for sure, but it is this brainwashing process, and we're gonna see if this crypto and DeFi thing breaks through. Do you think it's going to make traction and break through? I mean, it's already on people's minds. You know, these coins are becoming, $1 trillion market caps. What do you think is going to happen in the next couple of years in this space with DeFi and Bitcoin?
Well, Brian, the one reason you and I get along very well is you went inside the stomach of the beast. Crypto is like peeing in the ocean. It's nothing. I mean, so what? It's got $1 trillion cap. Big fucking deal. The point here is this. This is your biggest asset, that gap between your left ear and your right ear. I don't need money to make money. The only reason I have gold, silver, Bitcoin, and Ethereum is as stores of value. I just do not want any more Zimbabwe dollars our teachers want us to work for.
Right.
So I can make more money without money. It's called an infinite return. And that's all I work for. So I'm putting, you've seen guys like me before. We walk in, we put a structured deal together, take it public, we're out. You know the game, Brian.
Yeah.
Crypto is peeing in the ocean. That's all it is to me.
Right.
But it's better pee than salt water.
Right. Yeah. And look, I worked, like you said, in the belly of the beast. I worked on Wall Street for 15 years. I worked at Bankers Trust in New York City. I worked at First National Bank of Chicago. I've worked in London for an intradealer broker. I've done everything under the sun. And, one thing I realized was the way we made money, Robert, was by being non-transparent, by not passing information. That's how we could make all of our spreads. Everything was hidden. And the one thing I find encouraging about the blockchain is that it's all public record by definition, which is probably the most frustrating thing for Wall Street and the financial institutions, because they're thinking, there go all of our margins, there goes the whole game. And so in a way, like you said, it's refreshing. It's better than the salt water. And it's nice to see this is getting some traction. And also some other players are allowed to build on this. So, yeah.
Well, you asked the question, what you're talking about is these Bitcoin, which I have tremendous respect for them. I understand it. We have the enemy in common. It's called the Fed, Treasury, teachers unions, and government, and the banks. The big challenge is this, as you know, if it goes to Fed coin or Euro coin or Yuan coin, the banking system's finished. It'll disintermediate. All these big banks are toast because it's going to be pure Marxist, that the currency will be controlled through Fed coin. They will know everything you do, say, teach. They'll have everything on you. They do not need the banks. You see them, Brent, you know the mechanism, God almighty. Here I am, I just yesterday, last week, I borrowed $160 million. Where did that 160 million come from? Nowhere.
Right.
I just went to a guy like you. I sat down, I said, here's my project. I said, this is how much money I need. I offloaded it to all my investors. And then the bank loaned me 160 million. So we had to come up with 42 million. So I got 42 million from my investors. The bank, voila, magically creates another 140 million. I don't know, the numbers just boggle me. I get this fake asset. I mean, it's a real asset, and I pay no taxes. That's capitalism at its finest.
Yeah.
Now, that's the mechanism as of today. If it goes to Fed coin or Euro coin or Yuan coin, those banks are toast. They don't need them anymore. It's going to be straight injection of money. Helicopter money, as Ben Bernanke, somebody called it, and they're going to be able to trace everything you spend your money on and all this. So what does that mean? I'm looking into the future. That means in 2021, June, which is right now, I'm accumulating as much gold, silver, and Bitcoin, preparing for the day when it goes to Fed coin.
What is FedCoin? Is FedCoin when they create their own crypto around the dollar? Is that what you mean?
No, it just becomes government money, pure. Okay. And then Bankers Trust, Goldman Sachs, voila, gone. They don't need them. The transmission mechanism needs an entrepreneur like me, a capitalist who can borrow money. Because if I don't borrow money, money doesn't come into existence. I mean, you know that. That was 71 when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. It became debt. So the transmission mechanism required the guys you work for, the big banks, to have guys like me come in who say, I got this project. We get out the straw hat and the cane, and we do the dog and pony show. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then the transmission mechanism, it goes to guys like me, and that's how money gets into the economy. If it goes to Fed coin, which it will, you don't need the banks.
And FedCoin then is digital, you're saying, and so that way all the banks.
That's pure communism.
Right.
Pure central planning. That's what I mean. Pure central planning. They got Wall Street, they got the Treasury, and then they got the government.
Yeah. It's interesting, Robert, when you say centralized finance reminds you of communism and Marxism, and most people would, especially Americans, would have a knee-jerk response and say, what do you mean the Fed? That's like as American as apple pie. What are you talking about? We're capitalists. We're about the free market. And you're thinking, well, hold on a second. It's actually not true, because this is a centralized system that's trying to be controlled by a government. It's trying to brainwash the people. It's starting to sound a lot like those former communist regimes. That's the point you're trying to make here, right? We're going that way as opposed to the other way, towards more freedom and less government.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's this great book. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island, written by my friend G. Edward Griffin. As you can see, Brian, I flunked out of school. I'm not a good student, but I do study. So I read this book about 5 times to understand how the Fed operated. So the Fed was created in 1913. Guess what else was created in 1913? IRS, Internal Revenue Service. So if you get the big picture, that's why you Bitcoin guys, you're peeing in the ocean of abundance. There's so much more money to be made, but as a capitalist, I don't need money. I just store my money in gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum, just because where else am I going to put it?
Right. So
but Brian, all I use is debt.
Right. Yeah. So your lesson.
I borrow money into it. Money is borrowed into existence. It's recaptured through taxes.
Right. So your lesson to the young crypto traders and the people investing in DeFi is, don't forget your greatest asset is between your ears. And that's your creativity to see a potential option in the future, pull out your straw hat, do the dog and pony show, sell people on your vision. And again, if you need to use Ethereum, gold, and silver, it's just for storing the value that you're creating with your brain. That's what you're saying, Robert.
Yeah. And the reason I like real estate is the transmission mechanism, which are the guys you worked for. Bankers Trust, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, is they like real estate because it has some degree of tangible security to it. So that was a 2008 crash of MBSs, mortgage-backed securities, credit default swaps, and all that. It was just derivatives upon fake derivatives. So the transmission is broken. I mean, the guys you work for probably in 5 years will be gone. Bankers is gone. I don't say it's going to be true, but it's a possibility of it if they go to FedCoin.
Right.
If they go to FedCoin, you're going to wish you had gold, silver, Bitcoin, and Ethereum in hiding somewhere, because that's what they're coming after next. I know you, Brian, you always get in trouble. I get in trouble. You had David Icahn, we're not conspiracy guys. We're bankers.
Thinking long term about all the things that could happen and make sure that we're making responsible investments. I think that's what we're doing. Robert, let's talk about physical, tangible assets, because you said recently, quote, the brain is designed to see the physical, the mind is designed to see the invisible. And so for people that are brain oriented, you were saying they're screwed right now because there are these assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum that aren't tangible, and yet they could be real stores of value. Tell me your thinking on this.
Well, you're talking about blockchain. We went into the world of the invisible in 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down and the World Wide Web went up. 1989 was a big year. Then, as you know, long-term capital management and all those guys came down around 1999. Then Amazon appeared, and then 2008 was the credit default swaps and all this stuff. It's all invisible. Nobody can see it. You can't see Amazon. You can't see Apple. You can see the products, but you don't see how massive they are. You know, Apple's not an American company, as you know, Chinese. So who controls Silicon Valley? China. How did Biden win? China, Silicon Valley. And we all know that, but we want to pretend our vote counts. And I live in Arizona right now. People say, well, why are you living in Arizona? Because the next country China's going to take down is Taiwan. You know it. I know it. You know, Trump's my friend. I know his national security guys. China wants Taiwan. They've always said they wanted Taiwan. So that's why about 20 years ago, a company called Taiwan Semiconductor moved out of Taiwan and into Arizona. So now they call Arizona Silicon Desert. And when people say, well, what are you doing in the desert? I said, why aren't you here? Well, the reason I'm here is Taiwan Semiconductor is here. And right now, the shortest in supply of semiconductors, which are invisible. And so the average person can't see that. They're looking for a job at McDonald's. They want to be corporate. They want to be a corporate executive of McDonald's. Well, that's your choice. It's a free country. But McDonald's is going to full automation. They're not going to need hamburger flippers soon because artificial intelligence is coming in. You know, I mean, artificial intelligence is going to take out about 35 million jobs, truck drivers, they're gone. And our schools are still saying to kids, go to school and get a job or become a doctor or a lawyer. And then you're tethered to the IV line from the government called a paycheck.
Robert, in the last 20 years, are you seeing more people going into entrepreneurship? Are you seeing more kids, at least more open-minded to doing it? Do you see at least it trending that way? Because when I was a kid, Robert, there was no YouTube. I mean, all I could really find is your book in a library if I could find it, but no one was actually encouraging me to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, what's happening is, I don't know if I should have my little flip. I talk with my hands. But there was book number 2 was the cash flow quadrant. There was E, employee, go to school, get a job. S stood for small business, small entrepreneur. B stood for big business, 500 employees or more. And I stood for insider. I only invest as an insider. I don't have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. The trouble with entrepreneurship is many E's are moving to S's. So they're small business owners. And who did COVID shut down? Small business. They didn't shut down Walmart. They didn't shut down this. They knocked out the small guy. They couldn't knock me out. The other thing about being a small entrepreneur is you pay the highest taxes. Remember this here. This book here says, the creature from Jekyll Island formed the year the Fed was created, 1913, so was Internal Revenue Service. So they make money and they collect it back through taxes. So when you go to school and you become a small entrepreneur, let's say you open up a little taco shop or something, you're going to pay the highest taxes possible. You're going to have the highest government regulation on your butt. You don't have a prayer. So the object is, how do you go from E and S to B and the I? And that's where Rich Dad came in. We teach people to go from B to I. It's harder. It's almost impossible. 1 in probably 1 million people can make it, but I made it. B stands for brand. Rich Dad is a brand. McDonald's is a brand. Coca-Cola is a brand. I, like Buffett, only invest in brands. The average small-time hodler, whatever they are, they're small. They're going to get stepped on. So what we teach at Rich Dad, that's why we have our cash flow games and all this stuff, to start thinking about how do you become an entrepreneur that develops a brand, that invests from the inside. I don't want to build a Bitcoin. I just want to store my money there. You know, so all I'm doing is I put a water deal together the other day. I had to shut it down because there was a bunch of crooks in it. But I'm always putting deals together. I'm an I investor. I make my own products, my own deals. So a Green New Deal is coming up, and I've made a couple $1 million putting together a Green New Deal project. So that's what capitalists do. But you have to be bigger. than the small guy in our schools. So I catch hell from Bitcoin guys. I mean, I love you guys, but you're thinking too small. You're peeing in the ocean of massive money. Brian, how big is the bond market?
Yeah, you're right.
How big is it? Is it bigger than Bitcoin?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, you're right. You know, the one thing that it does make me feel positive, Robert, about Bitcoin and decentralized finance is that it does make people, I guess, understand their money a little bit more and their risks. And now DeFi, you can buy insurance contracts on there and you can swap out money. And I feel like if you're actually playing it with your own hands, you have a closer relationship with it, as opposed to assuming you have to trust the Wall Street guys and throw it in your IRA and never know what's actually happening. So in some ways, I feel like the kids are at least in the workshop, but I understand.
Agree. Brian, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. You know, I'm a lot older than you are, but my world was monopoly. You know, so I learned how to put small real estate deals together. And then when I realized, and then I flew for the U.S. Marine Corps, and I was in Vietnam when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. And then I became a gold bug, so I put together gold mines and silver mines, took them public. And that's when I realized I don't ever want to deal with Wall Street again. So we start small. You know, 1964, when I was 16 years old, I saw this little U.S. dime that had a copper tinge around it.
I remember.
And that was Gresham's law. So if you had any financial education, Gresham's law states, when bad money enters the economy, good money goes into hiding. So when I was 16 and 17 years old, I used to go down to the bank. I used to caddy, make a few dollars on the golf course. I would trade my dollars in for dimes and quarters and half dollars. I'd look for that copper tinge. If it's a copper tinge, it's Gresham's law. It's fake money. So I pulled it out. I'd turn it back to the bank and I'd get real, no copper tinge silver coins. So I have all of these silver coins today. They're worth more today than they were years ago. The trouble is my mother spent it. This is my lesson, Brian. Poor people do not know the difference between real money and fake money. And that's why people are poor. If you're working for, this is Zimbabwe's 10 million Zimbabwe dollars. What's going to happen when this is 10 million pounds or $10 million? Or what happens when it goes to a Fed coin? That's how you should think. So I agree 100% with you. I'm glad these young people are putzing around. You know, there's a big crypto conference on in Miami just recently and all this. But you have to understand what you're dealing with. Brian, you came from inside the belly, and FedCoin will take them out. That's what you got to watch out for. The same as artificial intelligence will take away truck drivers. FedCoin may, I hope not, but it'll take out the banks, because the transmission mechanism was it took an entrepreneur like me to borrow millions of dollars through the bond market or the pension funds and all this stuff. It required an entrepreneur to borrow money for money to get into the system to give it to the poor people. But if these young guys mess with the Fed too much and it goes to FedCoin, it's going to be a whole nother game again. Because you know this. I mean, every time a new technology enters a system, there's a crash. Throughout history. So that's why I mentioned LTCM, long-term capital management, is when the internet came into a market, it crashed. There was that Y2K crap and all this other stuff. And then there was a subprime with the derivatives market in 2008. And this next one is going to be if and when we go to FedCoin.
Interesting. I think I see what you mean now, because then it would cut out kind of the entrepreneurialism, the capitalism aspect.
No, it would take out the banks. It's going to take out the banks, Brian.
Right, which provide that, don't they? Or they empower people like you.
Right now, the mechanism is the Treasury gives money to the banks. The banks give money to me. Yeah. I pay my employees. When it goes to FedCoin, they don't need the banks. just like you don't need truck drivers. A banker of your caliber is going to be a truck driver, unemployed.
Wow. It's such an important lesson for people to learn if they're listening or watching right now, is that you have to get out of that brainwashed mentality of the paycheck.
Yes.
Yeah. And of assuming that your job is going to be there and your country is going to provide, et cetera, et cetera. You have to get out of that and force yourself into this value creation mindset, the same way your rich dad did by forcing you through those painful lessons when you were a kid. I reread your book a couple of years ago, Robert, when I was on the plane coming out to Phoenix to see you. And you know, I wish your rich dad was around to take my sons through this. My son just turned 5 years old. My other son's about to turn 4. You know, they need to be put through the paces there and really feel the pain of what it's like to actually make money work for you or you work for money. But it's a hard thing to get out of once you've been brainwashed, right?
Well, think about this, Brian, because you saw it. A guy like me makes up some bullshit project and finances it. That's the funny part. We make it up.
Yeah, you make it up with your creative ideas, right, Robert? And then you spread the risk around and, you know.
Oh, yeah, but where's the risk? Not my money.
Right.
My investors put up the seed capital. You know, that's what they call it. I don't know what they call it now, crowdfunding and all that stuff. That's all it is. It's sucker money coming into the market.
Right, and that's entrepreneurship, is what you're saying. Yeah, and this whole
I'm a capitalist. I take money, I use other people's money and other people's talents. That's what capitalist does.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what creates.
It drives the school teachers nuts.
Yeah, but
so you're a criminal. You're a crook. What are you doing? So I'm doing what you can't do.
Yeah, but it's what created America. It's what created so much value in the world. It's what created innovation. Everything.
Always been that way.
Yeah. Just to quickly finish on that Gresham's Law, you know, as soon as you see the bad money come in, whether that's Weimar Republic in Germany or Zimbabwe or them sticking copper centers in your silver dimes, whenever you see them starting to alter a system, that's when you're saying the good money runs. And so you should be aware of when that's happening so you can get out. Is that what you're saying with Gresham's Law?
Yeah, it's more than that. But Gresham's Law, there's all Moore's Law and all those things, acceleration. It's a study. But the biggest crashes come when there's new technology enters. So 2008 was the derivatives market, which you probably worked on. You know, mortgage-backed CDSs and all those things.
Yep.
This Fed coin, if that comes, it'll be in response to Bitcoin. That'll wipe out the bankers of the world. It's like they'll wipe out the truck drivers. And the reason it's good that the young people are practicing now is they at least have some experience. They can move on. That's like I started putzing around with real estate when I was 20. And today I own hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate.
Right.
But you've got to start. And so all the young people now who are starting, so what if you fail? Stand up, do it again. That's how you learn. So our schools teach us, you're stupid if you make mistakes. But in the real world, the person who makes the most mistakes wins. That was Thomas Edison. He failed 1,014 times before he created the electric light bulb. Now, what happened if he had failed once? Says, I'm a failure. I got to quit. I'm going to get my pension check, my entitlement check. Well, that's what we're teaching kids to do today because our school teachers are run by unions.
Yeah,
they're labor unions. They're criminals.
So you
Marx said, workers of the world unite. All you have to lose is your chains. It was Lenin who said, if you want to destroy capitalism, debauch the currency. That's what Nixon did in 71. And what Marx said was, if you want to destroy capitalism, introduce taxation. And that's what happened here.
Wow.
Printed money and introduce taxation.
Wow. It's a deep perspective there, Robert. So you're happy to see these kids in the crypto markets because they're getting their hands dirty. They're getting experience. They also never traded anything in their lives, which I think contributes to the volatility. This is new money. I did a whole show about this because on Wall Street, Robert, they teach us to buy low and sell high. And that's not natural because the human instinct is to buy high and sell low, right? You know this. When the stock goes up, I felt like I missed out. I better buy it. When it goes down, I'm not going to sell it yet because I hope it goes back up. So the human is actually wired not to be a good trader. And these kids seem to be making crypto up and down and all over the place. But at least they're taking control maybe of their own finances. And so like you said, maybe they're building the minds of the future that can change this system.
Yes, you got it. That's like GameStop?
GameStop, yeah.
They're giving the old guys a run for the money.
Yeah.
The most important thing is get in the game. Make mistakes. I just encourage people to be legal, ethical, and moral, because that's what really screws people up. You look at what's happening to Bill Gates with Microsoft. I mean, he has sex charges against him. He's associated with Epstein, and you can't say that because he was the golden boy. Now, my wife and I are separated. I never cheated on her. That's why we're still friends. We still work together. But that's life. Life goes on. Life is up and down. That's real. Yeah. We'll make mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. Don't be a liar and cheat on your mistakes. That's all I want. Best advice.
Yeah, the biggest lesson I've ever learned, and it took me late in my life, Robert, is to try to make more mistakes and take more risk. I studied as an engineer at MIT, and they taught us not to take risks because when you take risks as an engineer, planes fall out of the sky and bridges fall down. But you've never seen a successful person out there that didn't fail that 1,000 times. It's just, we never see that, or we don't focus on that. But every success story out there is littered with a road to failure. And yet, like you said, we teach our kids in school, don't get that wrong, be careful, stick in line, don't go outside the box. And then we're surprised when we create a generation of zombies. You're getting me all fired up here, Robert.
Yeah. So I want in ending here, I want to just say this. I give you so much credit for running for office, because in my family, my father ran for lieutenant governor against the governor, his boss. And that's when I saw his IV line get cut. It killed him. He couldn't get a job again and all this stuff.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.